First of all, I would like to thank you for C4 program and the Academy as well for having me. It's a really great pleasure to be here and speak with you all. But personally, I would like to meet everyone in person instead of sitting here using the Zoom, because I truly believe that nothing can replace the direct human interaction. Anyway, without further ado, I like to start my presentation, but I have a question. Agenda, since you are now managing the presentation, so my session today, I will be presenting the key findings of the ILO UN Women recent study on the public attitudes towards migrant workers in the ASEAN region, especially in the countries of destination, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and Japan. The reason why Japan is included is because Japan has becoming one of the main country destination for migrant workers from the ASEAN region, and that is why it is included in our study. Before I start, I would like to also note that this study was conducted in 2019, and it was launched in December 2019, just a few months before the COVID-19 hit the ASEAN region. So, the findings of the research may not reflect the COVID-19 context, but we will see, and we will have the conversation afterwards about this. So what I will be presenting to you folks is that the trends in labor migration in the ASEAN region, and then the selected findings from the study and the way forwards. So just to give you a little bit of the background of this study, it is done jointly by two programs. One is the Safe and Fair program, which is a joint ILO UN Women program, and the Triangle ASEAN program, which is another program under the implementation. So as you can see here on the screen, the map. So the United Nations estimates that between now and 2013, the share of the population aged older will increase in the ASEAN region. So migrant workers will be needed more to fill labor shortages in key sectors, especially in manufacturing, in domestic and care work, services, and agriculture. As per the map, you see here, dependency ratios or shares of the non-working population in relation to the working population through the region are changing. So higher dependency ratios suggest that there are gaps in the labor market generally, with fewer workers per population. So now let's see the trends in labor migration in the ASEAN region. So the ILO estimates that in 2017, the number of migrant workers in the ASEAN region is around 11.6 million, and half of that, nearly half of it, are women, representing 5.2 million. So as you can see, the figure shows that near equal of the share of women migrant workers across the region are women. So women are a big part of labor migration in the region. Also, from the last 8 or 9 years, the number of women in the outflows of nationals for employment has also increased. Let me give you the example of some countries in our region. So in Indonesia, from 57% to 80%, and in Laos PDR from 46% to 52%, in Vietnam from 33% to 40%. And in Cambodia, from 32% to 40%. And from Myanmar, from 24% to 35%. So the vast majority of migrant workers in our region, almost 90% of migrant workers in Brunei, in Malaysia, in Singapore, and Thailand, they work in the service and industry sectors. And I think everybody knows that more women migrant workers are working in service sector than any other sectors. So what does it say here? Women are still on the move, actually more, and migrant workers can be, labor migration can be a tool of empowerment because through labor migration, migrant workers can learn new skills, they can support themselves, they can support their families, and they can also become more financially independent. And this table, let me give you the example of the main countries of destination in the ASEAN region: Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand. As you can see that the number of migrant workers in these three countries are a lot. Actually, in Malaysia, almost 2 million migrant workers are currently residing and working. In Singapore, 1.3 million, and in Thailand, up to 2.7 million. And they make up a significant part of labor markets in the countries of destination. So in 2019, as you can see, the stock of international migrant workers in ASEAN countries of destination has been increasing a lot. Even though we see some effects of the COVID-19 towards migrant workers, a lot of them are now on the move. They're going to their countries of origin, but that doesn't mean that the need of migrant workers in our region are decreasing. This could be just a short temporary trend, but if you look at the bigger picture, the trend is still valid. That the ASEAN region, especially in Thailand, will soon become an aging society, and with that, more migrant workers will be needed, and they will. A lot of countries will need them to fill the labor shortage. Now let's see the public attitudes towards migrant workers. Here are some of the headlines that I would like to highlight. I think Mahi has already mentioned about this already in her presentation, that you can see that migrant workers are still on the headlines. Be it negative or positive, we will talk about that. But I just want you to see that, some of them are based on myth or false beliefs. Some of them are based on facts. Let's see why. When we did the large-scale survey, we asked the public, what effect do migrant workers have on the national economy? The answers were quite polarized. As you can see that in Singapore, about 58% say that an overall positive net effect. Meanwhile, in Thailand and in Malaysia and in Japan, the perception towards migrant workers is that they have kind of more negative impact on the national economy. So this is something that is interesting, and especially in Thailand, a lot of public believe that migrant workers are actually taking their jobs, but that is not true, because we know that around 3.3 to 6% of the GDP are from migrant workers. So they contribute to the economy of the country. And they feel the labor shortage, just like I mentioned before. So it's not that they're taking the jobs of the local people. And migrant workers are making crucial contributions to their countries of origin as well as destination. Many countries in the region, again, rely on migrant workers for the functioning of their countries. So migrant workers, including women migrants, make up a significant share of the total workforce and contribute to the wage growth of the region. Another finding that I find very interesting is when we ask the public about crimes, they say that migrants and crime are related. But is that true? So there is the relationship between labor migration and crime, however, is an issue that is not so well understood by the people in general. There is very little evidence to back up the claim that migrant workers are more likely to commit crimes than the rest of the population or than local people, unless lack of documentation is considered a crime. So painting migrant workers as criminals only fosters suspicion, discord, and lack of social cohesion in the society. So it is very unhealthy for our community to paint them as criminals. So as you can see the quotes, some believe that migrant workers do commit more crimes and associate area inhabited by migrant workers or foreigners as having more crime. On the contrary, others argued that the connection between migrant workers and crime is just only fictional and it's not based on facts. So when we ask about social inclusion and social and cultural threat, the results are quite alarming. The perceptions of migrant workers as social and cultural threat, as you can see in Malaysia and Thailand, the perception that migrant workers threaten their country's culture and heritage is notably high. As you can see, a high percentage of them. So it suggests that trust building in Malaysia and Thailand should particularly be a target of any interventions. So I would like to to leave a question to you, like, as journalists, what could be your intervention to help us debunk the myth? So now comes to the support for issues related to social inclusion. Again, as you see that the public were surveyed on whether migrant women should be allowed to marry citizens or bring their children with them when they are migrating, as well as attitudes on offering migrants a path to citizenship, neither of which are allowed for elementary skilled or elementary migrant workers in Japan, Malaysia, or Singapore. However, in Thailand, so the Thai government does not restrict marriages, and though children are not part of the documented MOU immigration process, in law, they are given access to the Thai education system, regardless of their status. When it comes to equal treatment with national, the public across the 4 destination countries hold a fundamental view that migrant workers should not be treated differently, and that discrimination, however, is not a problem. Unfortunately, this kind of discrimination can lead to unequal treatment, and women migrant workers can even be more at risk of violence and harassment. Interestingly, when asked whether women migrant workers specifically should have equal wages with women nationals doing the same job, only majorities in Japan, around 60%, and Thailand, again 60%, supported this. Now let's look at support for maternity leave and pregnant migrant workers. In Malaysia and Singapore, there is this, the government have imposed legal restrictions subjecting women migrant workers to pregnancy discrimination and sanctions during all the phases of their migration, be it recruitment, employment, and termination. So women are required to perform a pregnancy test before their departure from their country of origin, and also to repeat it on an annual basis. And should the test be positive, the women will be deported at her own expense. Now let's continue to look at the support for women migrant workers who experience violence. There is evidence to suggest negative attitudes towards women migrant workers, and that create barriers to their access to essential services in case of violence against women. Women migrant workers may struggle, however, to access services due to perceptions around their respectability or due to, sadly, victim blaming. Pervasive negative attitudes can also further isolate migrant women, restricting their movement and preventing them from seeking support due to fear of reprisals. So with all of this evidence that we have, so what can we do? As we are journalists, we have the tools and we have the platform, right? So let's see what we can do. Here are some recommendations. So as media professionals, we can promote the facts, the evidence of the benefits of migrant workers, right? And we can also help breaking the stereotype and the stigma that is widespread at the moment, especially during the COVID-19, as we know that now many of migrant workers are going back to their countries of destination, and they have faced a lot of backlash, and they also have to face with discrimination. Many of them were stigmatized as the disease carriers. You know, they have faced these challenges reintegrating back to their communities. So we can ensure that the content or the messaging that we report does not promote migrant workers, especially women, as victims or inherently vulnerable, right? Because by doing so, instead of making labor migration as an empowering tool, it, on the contrary, will paint that picture that this is a consequence. If you migrate, this is a consequence. This is what will happen to you. But we don't want to do that. We want to make labor migration as an empowering tool for migrant workers, especially women. And also, in the absence of direct interaction with migrant workers, we know that public attitudes toward them are often shaped by one-sided portrayal or the false information, hate speech, stereotyping, or even xenophobia. And this results in misperceptions of the role they play in our society, which can condone discrimination and even violence against women migrant workers. So with the tools and the channels we have, we should come together to address harmful stereotypes and shine the spotlight on the issues of violence and harassment toward migrant workers, especially women. What else can we do? So we as the media, we can help shape the public attitudes towards migrant workers. Well, the language we use we know that it can put forward specific positioning and impressions, including at times perpetuating stereotypes. So therefore, it is very, very important to be clear about terms and definitions related to women migrant workers and violence against women, and establishing a common ground from which to have conversations and to work towards the society or even the world in which labor rights are respected for all, and one in which migrant workers' voice, choice, and agency is recognized. Now, I like to wrap up my last slide with inclusive terminology. So these are the terms that we really encourage to use because they are right-based, and there are many, many words that we have seen in the media, unfortunately, that does not empower migrant workers and at times stereotype migrant workers. And in the back, of the reader's mind, it shaped some forms of perceptions and attitudes toward migrant workers. So instead of saying sending countries or home countries, we encourage to use the term country of origin. Why? Because the word sending country carries the connotation that the state would take an active part in making workers leave the country to find employment and residence abroad. Similarly, the word country of destination or destination country is encouraged to use because the term, if you say the receiving countries or the host country, this term implies that migrants are a guest, and since they are a guest, they are not part of our community. Another term that I would like to put an emphasis on is irregular status migrant workers or undocumented migrant workers. This word should be used instead of illegal migrant. Why? Because the word illegal migrant is seen as stigmatizing and associated with criminality. And a person can never be illegal just because being a person. Being a human being, being a person is not illegal. Their action can be illegal, but being a person, being a human being is not illegal. And that is why we encourage to use the word undocumented migrant instead. So that's it from me, so that our colleagues here can have further resource. And this is my email address. If you have further questions, you can also reach out to me as well. Thank you.